Machine.
Hi there, it's Claire here, and welcome to Hot Pod Time Machine. This is the podcast where we talk about decisions from our past which changed the trajectory of our future. And I am very happy to welcome special guest Timothy Omundson. Hello, Tim, how are you doing?
I'm great, Claire. It's happy to be here. Let me do my roll day wave
Yeah,
since I'm talking to a UKer.
since you're beaming in to live, well, not live, to the UK. Tim, now, when I asked you to do this podcast and I told you what it was about, without telling me yet what your decision was, what kinds of decisions were going through your head? Because we make micro and macro decisions every single day. So, what kind of things were coming to mind?
The first thing was just the big choice, the big life choice of. Well, I'm not going to tell you now because you told me not to tell you.
Yeah. Oh, so that's the first one. Okay, well, you're going to have to tell me now. What was the
Oh,
first thing that came to mind then?
okay, we are jumping in. All right.
Yeah,
Um,
let's go right
so
in.
I've never make this good for everybody.
Okay,
I
go for
guess
it.
the first, if we're doing the sliding doors, the first major decision was the choice to become an actor and move to LA from Seattle. I grew up in Seattle, which is for your listeners, not a huge entertainment town, although it's a great theater city. So but the big sort of pivotal moment in my life was going to see a production of Death of a Salesman at the Seattle Repertory Theater.
Right,
I
okay.
By this time I was in seventh grade, so I was about probably 12 years old. I started taking drama classes at my junior high school, and that's where my life really kind of exploded for me was discovering drama class.
Ah,
I
okay.
wasn't an athlete by any means, not a great student, didn't have a ton of friends, what didn't have any obvious talents really until I discovered drama class. And then that's where like my it all kind of exploded for me. I was like, oh, I can do this. So I go to see this production of Death of a Salesman, and it was mostly a student. Like all the audience was made up of students because they bust us all in from the local schools. And there's the big scene at the end, the big climax scene between Willie and Biff, where after the actor playing Willie has this monologue, this entire audience full of teenagers bursts into applause. And I just remember thinking, I want to do that. Like if someone can be so powerful, like just with spoken words, to make a bunch of dumb kids sit up and pay attention, and then spontaneously have this emotional outburst. I was like, that's what I want to do for the day. So I remember going home and saying to my like by then I'd like I said I'd displayed a bit of a talent for acting and doing theater in school. And I went home and I remember going to my dad's room, which is interesting because it's Father's Day today in the States. So going to my dad and saying, all right, I made a decision. I'm going to be an actor. Because if you have a talent and you don't use it, then you don't get to say that you have that talent. And my
Absolutely.
dad went, who? He just went, okay, I agree. Which was a little shocking because my dad he dealt with numbers. But later in life, I discovered that my dad was secretly wanted to be a musician. So he had the soul of an artist that I never knew about growing up as a kid. So for me to say this and have him go, okay, sure. Which remember my dad's pretty conservative and would always went for the safe route. I thought he'd be a little freaked out by it, but he was intensely supportive.
Oh, that's really incredible. Because I
Yeah, it was great.
came from I would say my family are very creative. Like my dad played guitar. My mum, I think she's got creative talents that she hid. But her family were all artists, architects, and that kind of thing. But I wasn't encouraged. I was encouraged to a point. So I played flute and cello and guitar, and I did art. But performing was something different. Like if I had said I really want to stand up on a stage and be a performer, coming from Glasgow, like people they would have gone, "What? That's daft. Like why do you want to do that?" And it's a real shame because I feel like there's a lot of kids that probably have talents that they kind of keep under wraps or they're never really encouraged. So it was incredible that your father really encouraged you. And was that it? Did you never want to be anything else? Did you never want to
No, it was
go? That was it. It was acting.
that was it. From the time when I was 12 years old, I was like, it was acting. And actually, again, growing up in Seattle, it's a great theater city. So my parents didn't have we didn't have season tickets to the sports to the Seattle Mariners or the Seattle Seahawks. My folks had tickets to the Empty Space Theater and season tickets to the Seattle Opera Symphony. So I grew up like immersed with sort of the arts and culture. So knowing that that was important, like being raised with the symphony and going to the theater, really, I guess sparked that. And then when I was after seventh grade drama class, where I'd said I kind of figured out, oh, I'm pretty good at it, I can do this. And I started taking classes at a place called Seattle Children's Theater, which really, summer of 1984, I'm getting into the weeds here. Summer of '84, I did this really intensive summer program called the Young Actors Training Program. And that's where I was like, this is what I'm going to do. So the summer before but I kind of maxed out at the with their classes and decided I need to go to the next level with study, because it wasn't just I'm going to be an actor, I'm going to be a professional actor. So I the summer before my senior year of high school, I went to New York City and enrolled in the American Academy of Dramatic Arts for their summer program, thinking that maybe New York was going to be a place that I went after high school. Then kind of realized that New York was a little too far away from me, being a West Coast boy. So I went back to Seattle with my new fresh 16-year-old pierced ear, much to my parents' aghast. They're lucky I didn't come back with tattoos. But and then said, okay, so now I need to figure out what I'm going to do after high school. That's when I made the decision to apply to USC's School of Drama down in Los Angeles, which was a huge move to move from LA from Seattle to LA. Mm. So I auditioned for the program, got in. It was a terribly expensive school then and now. Well, now, but especially then. So, and then this another nod to my parents. The Seattle Children's Theater, I mean, I went on scholarship, so I was work study, but still my parents were foot the bill for their kid to take the bus into Seattle and take these classes, which, again, incredibly fortunate to have the support of my parents for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so then we hopped in the after I got into school, we all hopped into the family station wagon and drove to LA.
Wow. So okay, let's stop for a bit and let's rewind back. I'm interested to delve into how you felt as a young person doing all of these things, because it sounds like your parents were supportive. You delved right in there. You were very sure that that's what you wanted. Was there ever a time as a young person when you were trying to get into these places or moving where you felt the fear? You must have felt some fear. And what was it that kept you going? Was it just that pure passion for acting?
Well, I would have to say after graduation, because it's funny, again, with Seattle being theater, like there was never any thought of like being on screen, because that might as well have been another planet. So it was always sort of theater. And then, of course, I made the decision to get a theater degree in a city that doesn't care anything about live theater, or cares very little, I should say. So that was kind of a little bit of a mess up there. But then eventually, because I had this in theater school, because I always was I was on this track to be like, I thought I was going to be a classical actor on stage, and again, not so much classical theater here in LA.
Yeah.
But then I was able to get slowly I got an agent and a manager, and after auditioning for a few years, started getting work on television.
So what
had to learn.
Sorry, what was that like? Like going from theater to television, and was it a bit of a shock to the system for you?
It was absolute madness at first point. I was very lucky in that so my first job, they call it Taft-Hartley, which means you can join the union on Seinfeld.
Yes.
And again, having never walked on set, having never been on Seinfeld before, having no idea what the hell was going on. And the pace of sitcoms is very fast. So it was really just had to sit there and just keep my eyes open and try and figure out what the hell I was doing.
Yeah, that must.
But they were all very nice to me, which was, thank God.
It must have been extremely scary. Like, especially, there's been times. Okay, I'm trying to think back to my earlier years doing what I'm doing now, and there's been times where I've walked onto a set or onto a stage, or into a studio, And I have been shitting my pants because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, why have they hired me? Obviously, that gets better as time goes on because you learn on the job and you get older, you become more confident.
Yeah, the imposter syndrome eventually settles down a little bit. It still hasn't gone away, but it calms down a little bit.
It calms
The real
down.
kicker was the job where I finally got my actual SAG card and could join the union and get health insurance was a show called Sequest, which was actually honest to God on the job training, which you don't get the opportunity to do that nowadays because it's like either you know what you're doing or you're out the door. And it
Right.
gets like, what the hell? How did I get this job? So I show up on set, and the set was this it's this futuristic show. So we're in the submarine, and I'm doing this scene with legendary actor Roy Scheider, Academy Award winner, and we're this far away from each other. We're in this little capsule, and I'm projecting, of course, because I'm a theater actor, and I'm used to like hitting the back row. And Roy looks at me and goes, "Hey, kid, you don't have to project. You got a microphone taped to your chest. You don't have to project." Another time I looked at my chest with the microphone taped to it. I went, "Oh my God, thanks, Mr. Like I had no idea what the hell I was doing." And then I was doing this off-camera work with this English actor named Stephanie Beacham.
Yeah.
So off-camera, it's like you're next to the lens, and I'm doing my lines back to her, but I didn't want to because I had no camera technique, no film technique. I did not know what the hell I was doing. I looked at it, I was like trying to move away from the lens and not distract. She said, "No, darling, put your face right next to the lens." So Stephanie taught me how to do off camera. Roy taught me how to speak on camera, and it's just the grace of God of having these kind and generous actors that I got to work with, who taught me how to work on camera, and then eventually I did more of it, watched the other people what they were doing, learned how to hit a mark, and
Yeah,
but
that's crazy. I don't even actually don't even. They're completely different disciplines in a way. Yeah, because you know you're acting to a camera. You've got to be closer to your, depending on the scene, closer to your fellow actors, and yeah, you're not projecting your voice. But was there anything that you missed when you started doing television and things like that on camera work? Did you miss the stage? Is there a preference for one or the other? Would you say?
I mean they're such apples and oranges.
Yeah.
But there's part of me. I mean, I love the speed of television, especially a sitcom. But then I've done a little bit, not much film work, but the advantage of film is you could often have, if it's a big budget, you've got more time.
Yeah.
I just did an episode of the new show coming out called Percy Jackson,
Mhm.
based on the great books by Rick Riordan. And a friend of mine was the executive producer, so he offered me the job. And because it's a Disney Plus film, so they had a Disney Plus series, so they had a ton of money. And my friend pulled me aside and he's like, "Just so you know, we're not rushed here. We will never move on until we're ready." So I had the luxury of time and just to do take after take after take, which really getting into the minutiae of it, I really loved. But that's not usually the way it is because normally it's like time is money. You gotta go. But then so that was, and since I'm recovering from a stroke, you and I have just talked about this.
Yes.
So getting back on a set, I've lost a lot of that. But I used to have this really innate sort of sixth sense of knowing where the camera was at all times.
Yes.
Like it's just this sixth sense thing that comes. So because of the stroke, cognitively and visually, I've got a vision break on my left side, so I've lost that. So I really had, and my voice is still recovering from my stroke. So to be able to get back on it, so I had to say to my friend Dan Schatz, got to shout him out. I said, I'm not the actor you worked with 10 years ago, because he never worked together many times. And he again was so generous, and he was like, we want you in whatever form you show up with. You're still, we'll take it all. So
Wow.
I was just the kindness of this man who gave me the confidence to take our time on set, work on my voice, and I used to have this really sort of booming baritone theater voice, and it's just starting to lower again. But right after my stroke, it became very breathy.
Okay.
I've lost a lot of the nuance with it. So now it's instead of a scalpel, it's much more of a sledgehammer.
But would you say there's, although that was very hard, especially as an actor where you're using your body and your voice and everything else, you know, that your whole soul's going into your performance. It's hard to come back from that, and you have. But is there something that you might have learned over that time since having the stroke that perhaps will inform you as an actor going forward at all?
Yeah, actually, I really have. One of the great things is I've gone through this existential crisis right after the stroke because, like I said, I have identified as an actor since I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
So suddenly not being that thing, and especially with comedy, I was very physical comic,
Mhm.
and to have that sort of vocal subtlety, and just disappear was really frustrating. But the thing I've learned is that, and I've talked to some other writers and actors about this, and one of them was really instrumental in getting me to realize that the new version of me could be even better than the old version of me. Where a lot of the ways it's like vocally I was full of a lot of tricks, and facially I've got this used to do this sort of eyebrow arch
Mhm.
that I can't because this side of the face doesn't quite work anymore the way it used to. So I like a lot of my tricks I can't do anymore. So now I've got to really have to strip away the bullshit and just really kind of go to the real core of it,
Oh,
which has been a really interesting part of the journey.
interesting. Do you think perhaps better is not the right word? I suppose it's like being an actor is observing the human condition, it's understanding life, and how life can progress. And I guess that makes you, it gives a bit of depth, perhaps, going forward.
Depth is
Because,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I would say it just better in my case would be trying to go deeper,
yes, yes.
just really to cut to the core of the moment. I've had this interesting experience lately. So I do this I was on a show for 8 years called Psych, and my dear friend Maggie Lawson, who's one of the bobbleheads up here,
Right.
she and I have a podcast where it's a Psych rewatch podcast where we get together once a week and talk about the episode and do this rewatch. We really dive into it. But lately it's gotten so popular we've taken it on the road. So we've been doing the show live in front of audience at Comic Cons and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And many of our friends and mags have noticed that, made note that when I hit the stage now and am in the lights, there's a palpable shift in me. Like I become much more of the that old person.
Oh.
And there's a feeling of like being back on a stage and making an audience laugh. Really just brings me back. Like it brings back such joy that I'd kind of forgotten.
That's a powerful thing to make people, to bring joy, I think, not just make people laugh. I started doing stand up last year, and I went back to it. I had like, you know, personal issues, and then I came back to it again this year. And the first gig that I did coming back wasn't my best, you know, because you're building confidence again, and it's a different thing to interview someone than it is to actually tell a story and actually make people laugh. And at one point I looked down at this lady and I thought it wasn't going very well. You know, when you think in your head and it's live, and you're thinking, I gotta keep going, but I'm not feeling it, you know. And I was like, gotta keep going. And I looked down at this lady, and she was cackling like this one woman going, oh my god, holding her stomach. Everyone else, whatever, they were sort of normal, and I thought that's what it's about. That I don't know why, but just there's something just so joyous about making another human smile, and I think
Yeah, the fact that you connected to that one person, we're able to then ignore all the people who maybe you weren't connected with as much. But you can't always read the room. You don't know what you really, if you're connecting with somebody or not.
yeah,
Like even those people who weren't maybe holding their bellies and laughing, that doesn't mean you weren't connecting with them on a deeper, more emotional level.
that's true. That is true. You just don't know, and it's you when you're going on a live stage. You're sort of second. I feel like I'm second guessing, and I think the best performances I've had anyway are when I just go fuck it. I just
Absolutely.
go straight out. Do you feel that about theatre? Back to your theatre days, when you stood on a stage, were there nights where you just, it's a funny thing where you're just not feeling the crowd, and then nights where you're feeling the energy? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, again, doing theater in LA, I've certainly done play. There was one summer I was doing a Jacobian theater in LA to like Sunday afternoon crowds of like, maybe 100 people, 75 people, not even 100, 75 people, and like not a laugh. Just, I mean, it's not a lot of laughs in Jacobian theater,
Yeah.
but we call it the Blue Hairs because, I mean, it's like, of course, it's Jacobian, however you want to pronounce it, tragedy. So everyone's dead at the end,
Yeah.
and I hear this old woman go, "That one's dead, but he's still breathing." And you're like, "Oh shit! Well, all right, broke the illusion for that one. Let's just pray the next 20 minutes goes quickly and we can get the hell out of here and go have a drink."
Oh, but when it's good, oh, like live stuff is so good. I mean, I love working in studio, and I love working on location. I like working with crews. I really like a crew of people, and I love to get to know people. But I don't know, like there is something really incredible about looking out. Sometimes when I'm interviewing people, the most people I've ever stood in front of was 5,000 people. And I was interviewing the cast of Loki. And at one point they were just chatting, and I looked out and I could see all these little twinkling faces just with maybe the first 4 or 5 rows. And I just thought, isn't it just so lovely? Like everyone's just really happy and everyone's forgotten what's outside of these doors. And that is the power of, I don't know, any kind of entertainment, which is, I guess, what keeps you going. What is it that it keeps me going anyway? I love bringing that happiness to people. What about you? What's kept you going all of these years? Is it something personal, or is it you want to give back to other people?
It's just, I mean, it's selfish, entirely selfish. It's the joy I feel in doing it, certainly back on stage, but that when you hit those magic moments on a set that where you're improvising, it can become jazz.
Mm.
It's just otherworldly. Like you finish a take, and don't quite know what happened. It was so out of body. Those experiences are just amazing. But what you were saying about that community of, I always used to say my favorite place in the world was on a set,
Mm.
because I love nothing more like, because when you're a young kid trying to get a job, like you're just trying desperately to get to a set. So then to suddenly be on a set and sitting with other actors and shooting the shit with other actors, I love, especially older actors. I used to love really hanging the shooting the shit. But then, like, getting back to work during the pandemic was a big drag because I was blessed to get working, but suddenly that space, that connection was gone because everyone had to be so isolated and everyone's masked up. And I like cognitively, I'm having enough trouble communicating and listening. So it took a lot of the joy of that being on set experience. So then having to find it in different places.
But in terms of like now going forward, we've got through COVID. It's not been erased from society, but it is, at least we're back and we can communicate with each other in person now. You're doing your thing, you're recovering. Has there been a moment in the last few years or since we came back after COVID where you've gone, yeah, this is bloody cool, because as we get older, those, being an old grump, those those moments become few and far between because we get used to things. We've been around the block. But are there any moments that make you go, yeah, I'm here and this is bloody cool? Anything like that happens still to you?
Yeah, even like well, it was our last podcast live show. We just did we did Motor City Comic Con, and to be in a room with 400 plus
Mm.
really hardcore psych fans and just feel that love in the room was pretty overwhelming. As my podcast partner Mag and I were riffing off each other and just telling these stories of this time in our life that was so joyful to us personally, and then sharing that with this crowd of that are just loving hearing everything about the show and our inside details was just truly like, and just joyful. And even like, because walking on stage now is just difficult.
How do you feel doing those live events? Because I do comic cons quite often. They are, especially over the summer. There's so many of them. I'm back and forth to the US and to the UK doing lots of them, and they're great spaces. How do you feel doing comic cons from like a guest perspective, doing your podcast and meeting fans and stuff?
Well, it's intensely gratifying, especially like this last one in Motor City. because now I usually do them. I mean, I've been doing cons since Xena 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So, but now I tend to do them for the show Supernatural, and that Supernatural fan base has just embraced me as part of the and Ruthie. We talked about Ruthie.
Yeah. Ruth is incredible. And the Supernatural family are just one. The fans are wonderful. They're so
Unbelievable.
nice.
So my first big convention back after the stroke was I did one in Vegas. I think this was maybe 2 years ago. Walked out on stage, and then Rob Benedict was our MC, and who's also he and my friend Richard Spade was the other MC, and Rob's a stroke survivor as well. And the introduction they gave me was just so warm. Walked out on stage and was just hit by this wall of love and applause that I'm actually getting emotional now. Sat down and just burst into tears. Like I didn't. The first 15 minutes of my panel were me just blubbering, crying, like ugly. Your dog's just been killed in front of you by a bus. Like snot. It was just I could not speak. I'd pulled out. I reached my pocket, and it was 2020 now, and I had a mask in my pocket. I had to like literally blow my nose in this mask because I was out of Kleenex. But it was just the most incredible, uplifting experience of love from the fan base, welcoming me back as a stroke survivor, and just being able to be there in person with these people was
It's
an experience I will never forget.
oh my god, it's wonderful. Like being at Comic Cons is a very life affirming experience. I tend not ignore the news. I don't ignore it because I don't want to be ignorant. So I do read things and I keep up, but less and less these days. I feel very overwhelmed by a lot of negativity. I'm not scared of it, but I have decided going forward to put a lot more time into positive endeavors and people that are positive to me. So I find Comic Cons just wonderful spaces, and the messages I'm nothing and no one, and the messages I get afterwards. So I can't imagine the love the guests feel sometimes. I had a
It
friend.
was
Sorry, go on.
no, see, it is great. So I was saying, so Supernatural is one thing, but now with the bigger Comic Cons, we realize it's more like my body of work.
Mm.
So this last one in Detroit, just in the autograph line, it was just an extraordinary experience because you're seeing 1,000 people and you're trying to give everyone a moment to like really connect with them, and again, it's like I don't see well, and my hearing's great, and it was super loud in the convention hall.
Yeah.
So we're yelling back and forth at each other, and this kid comes, and so we're getting it's just the love that it's poured on us as people, especially with a show called Psych, because the stories of how many like cancer survivors have said, I watched Psych while I was going through chemo, and I got my this, or that's the show that I watched with my family.
Wow.
This kid comes up, kid who's probably like early 20s, and he literally was just shaking. He was so emotional and so moved to me and so I kind of, and again, I'm like physically not great. I kind of reached out as much as I could to give him a hug, and he was just saying how he was really sick at one point in his life, and Psych was the show that like gave him hope and got through. So just to meet this kid was just like such an honor and privilege to know that I can affect someone's life like that with positivity and help make their days a little better. I'm such a lucky son of a bitch.
Yeah. It is just wonderful to be able to do that. I think that especially if you're acting and you're in a studio, on a stage, whatever, especially if you're in the studio and you don't, you're not in front of an audience, you're not seeing that live reaction. And I always say when I interview actors, and they say the same thing, it's like a physical manifestation of your work when you're actually meeting people and they're telling you stories. I've got friends who do voice video games. I've got friends that are on camera. And God, I don't think I'd be able to hold it together if I was sitting there and hearing these. I mean, I would want to hear the stories, but I'd have a breakdown at the end of the day. It must be quite emotionally draining. Is it quite emotionally draining?
Yeah. It's emotionally draining. And then also, because, like I said, because of the stroke, I don't have a lot of the bandwidth that I used to.
Yeah.
So I can only interact so much. But actually, by the end of this day, like I totally lost my voice, sort of screaming at people and trying to talk to them, and really connect. Which the hard thing was doing cons in COVID, like photo ops and stuff, where like we had to do like the no contact photo ops, which was just a drag for everybody.
Yeah, it's weird. It was weird. Yeah, yeah. It was with the
Like you're stuck between plexiglass and I mean, obviously, I understand. I was all for the distancing
yeah.
to keep everybody safe, but now that we've gotten back to doing cons where you can actually give somebody a hug for a photo op, it's much more enjoyable
Oh my God, 100%. I mean, I
because
get it.
people are paying so much money. I mean, I get it, like this is people's major entertainment for a lot of people. So they're paying. Everybody's working hard. The economy's rough. So for them to be paying the money they are just to have a picture with dumb old me is amazing and humbling. So to then like back in the day to be like, okay, and here's our fist bump through plexiglass. That sucks.
I know it does.
And
And
I'd go backwards like we can actually have a connection and
all for it, of course. But I'm happier now that we can actually touch each other, which sounds weird, but you know what I mean. We can touch each other
yeah.
in a nice way, in a nice way. But when you were a kid, okay, or when you were young growing up, if you had a chance to do all these Comic Cons, what kind of guests would you want to see? Who would you want to get a photo with, or who would you want to get an autograph from? Who are your kind of heroes growing up?
Gosh, I would have been like would have been the cast of Monty Python probably.
Okay. Monty Python. Do you like a lot of British comedy and things like that?
Love it. Yeah, because in Seattle we could get a little bit of the CBC, a little bit of Canadian rock, I think, which occasionally would have some BBC stuff on.
Right. Right.
So we got a lot of British comedy, and I know my dad was very funny, and loved comedy. So he introduced me. He was one of the first people to really introduce me to like comedy TV and comic movies, and I really liked the dry. So that dry British humor really hit home with me.
Yes, because it's so different from like SNL. And no, I'm not saying anything bad against SNL, but as a British person, even growing up, even watching the old SNL and things like that, and that kind of vibe is so different from what we grew up with. I find almost that style of comedy is quite bombastic. It's very American, I guess. It's really like, which I love. I like American things. That's why I'm moving to America. I want to be in America, but yeah, like
Yeah, it's much more presentational.
oh, 100%. It's
Well, it's
less.
funny you say that because I'm a huge Anglophile, and I was working on Gallivant, this amazing show I did post Psych. I got to work in the UK for months at a time and just loved it. Where you say you want to be in America, like I really wanted to be in the UK
Did
and just
you?
soaking up.
Okay. What kind of other British things did you like then? So you like Monty Python. If I had to visit your say teenage wall and you had a wall dedicated to only British things, music, television, film, all of that kind of stuff, what would be on your wall? What kind of posters would we see on your UK wall?
If I had a UK wall as a kid, I mean, I wasn't aware enough about it really to have probably some new wave bands.
Right, okay.
But what else? I didn't immerse myself enough in it, so I don't know. But it would have been yeah, probably Python.
And Pythons.
I have like I was the weird kid who was reading Laurence Olivier biographies in high school.
Nothing wrong with that. You and I would have been friends. Nothing wrong with that. I was a dork. Like I liked reading big old heavy books, and I was like a bookworm growing up. And I think I read. I mean, Lawrence of Olivia. I mean, yes, that's a different beast. But when I was, I think I was 8 or 9. I got through The Hobbit, but it was very like it's quite a heavy read for an 8-year-old. Like learning words like
Yeah, I'm dyslexic. I could never go that deep on those.
it was really, I mean, learning words like paraphernalia. I remember asking my mom, like, what does paraphernalia mean? And my mom had to kind of, she wasn't so much a bookworm, but she had to kind of explain all of these sort of strange words. But less of a bookworm now. It's terrible, I think. I've fallen into the trap of being a busy person that just falls down the scroll hole on Instagram.
No,
So what about you? Have you fallen down that hole as well?
Absolutely. So I'm totally gone down. I go down that rabbit hole way too much, and I've started to actually try and write for the first time in my life.
Oh,
So when I
okay.
was in the ICU, now it's like now I'm saying it out loud where people are going to hear it. So I really have to do it. When I was first in the ICU, it's like I've got to write down the story of getting sick and the recovery journey. So I found a great new friend that we and I are collaborating on this show, which right now it's kind of gonna I'm thinking one man solo show for stage, but it could very easily turn into something else. But really, I want to hopefully tour this thing at solo fringe festivals,
That'd be great.
because again, that thing like getting back on stage is just I think I'm chasing that dream again.
Challenge yourself, do it. Like you should absolutely do it. And I think the writing sounds interesting. So you said this is the first time you've actually attempted to go, yeah, I'm going to try and write this. I'm going to actually do it.
Yeah, I've never written a script, tried to write a script or anything. I always say I have nothing to say. Now it's like, okay, now I've got a story to tell. Now I've got something to say.
Yeah.
But I've really found those days of like giving myself a task of like I'm in the process of editing my first draft. So like today I'm going to sit and write and put my phone on the other side of the room so I'm not scrolling through Twitter and just which in Instagram, which just makes me angry about political news.
Oh God, don't. Like you and me
It's like I
both.
got to put it down.
Although, Tim, you need to fix your algorithm. Okay, let me give you some tips about the algorithm.
Please do.
I avoid all politics, and well, I don't know. I think my phone's listening to me. It's all like really sad single women stuff that comes up for me now. So it's like, don't take no shit off, man, and I'm like, oh wow, my phone's really listening to me. Like, oh my God, or like, you know what? Don't worry about your age. You can do it, and I'm like, oh, okay. So it makes me feel a lot worse. My God, Instagram aging me. But I was saying this in another episode of the podcast. My algorithm is all stuff about vibrations, the universe, uh, like decisions and choices, because I tend to go down that hole, the kind of like existential.
Right.
Like I really love all that kind of stuff, and I because of the year I've had, and the changes and things, the idea of raising your vibration in adversity, which is just trying to be as positive as you can be, to claw yourself out of situations, appeals to me greatly. And the power of the mind and the human spirit, as you know, is incredible. We can get ourselves out of some sticky spots. That's what I'm saying.
Right. And the problem with me is like I'm a political junkie a little bit, so I do love the politics, but then even for me who loves it, I'm like, okay, now I'm starting to get too negative. This is making me angry, and I have to turn it off and not just pull myself out of the rabbit hole.
Yeah, and do something
But
creative.
what I've started doing now is because reading, as I said, as a dyslexic, and reading is really difficult, especially with now my vision being affected by my stroke. I discovered books on Audible.
Oh yes. Okay, I love Audible. What are you listening to right now on Audible? Then got any recommendations?
Um, well, it's things I'm starting to listen to. I mean, I've got a library full of, just like in my office, I've got a shelf full of books I've never read. Used to love buying books, but then just never reading them.
Same, same. It looks good
So
though.
now, it does. So now I've got a huge stack of books that, well, it's like, what do you do with this book? I'm like, I'm going to read them.
I don't have time. Even with Audible, I got credits on Audible, and I was like, oh, I've got like credits. I can like listen to stuff. So
Yeah.
I started listening to Garth Marenghi's Terror Tome. He is incredible. And then I got really interested in the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go down the Robert Greene rabbit hole.
Don't know that one.
This is where we're going, and it's literally just about how to be powerful and exert power without exerting power, and then the laws of attraction and the laws of on the art of seduction and all of these kind of things.
And all the manifestation stuff, yes.
Yeah, I love all that stuff. My God, I'm obsessed. But I find myself doing what I do with physical books. I listen to a little bit and I go, I'm busy. I'm busy now. Like I listen to it when I'm cooking and I'm like, I've finished cooking now. That was 20 minutes. I'm never gonna listen to it again. That's terrible. I've got a terrible
Yeah,
attention span.
no, I do too. I try and listen. Now I listen to like more podcasts when I'm like I just getting steps, just extra physical therapy wise. I do a lot of walking in my back patio to try and just get in, just recovery. So I'll listen to podcasts. So I can't listen to audiobooks now because again my attention goes so, and I constantly have to like rewind the last 10 seconds to like get because I just missed something. So it could be also the stroke coming with like I really have to pay attention. I have to sit down and do nothing.
Just
But my Audible book of the day tip I'll give you is book by my friend, a memoir by my friend John Ross Bow, who's a tremendous actor, great comedic actor, and wrote a book called No Job for a Man, which is about his it's about his journey to his relationship with his father and his journey to become an actor. But it's also a lot about he's had some big mental health struggles with depression and anxiety, and so it's about him. It's a lovely book.
Okay, you're gonna have to email that to me, please.
I will.
Yeah, because I'm always looking for recommendations when I'm traveling and stuff like that as well. That would be incredible.
Well, you're gonna have some long flights coming up.
Yes, I do. I'm going to. Well, by the time this goes out, well, I've gone to Salem. I'm going to Greece, then Salem, then Boston. That's in a row. So then I'm going Greece, Salem, Boston. Then I come back, and then I'm away again in Virginia and Chicago. So this is all before I move to LA. Oh my God, I'm going to be, by the time I see you in LA, I'm going to be shattered. I'm going to be like, I don't want to see anyone. I'm just going to like stay indoors. Thanks, guys. I'm just going to be indoors in LA and just lie down. I just need to lie down. So yeah, I'm doing a lot of traveling. So please send me some stuff. I would absolutely.
And the great thing about, just for your listeners, the great thing about John's book is, yes, you could buy the hard copy, but I love the Audible because John is so funny, and he does the narration, so you really got to hear it in his voice.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'll send you some recommendations. You send me some recommendations, and we'll have like an Audible book club.
Deal. I like it.
I like that. Audible, and then we have to talk about it once we're finished. Though that'll make me have to. There has to be one rule that we have to give each other some notes at the end, so it shows that we've listened.
I like this challenge.
Let's do it. Let's see if we can do it. I'm like, shit, Claire, I've given myself more homework. Oh my God.
As you're trying to pack up your life of 20 years in London.
And if I can listen to a thing at the same time. So I can do it. We're going to do it. I'm going to send you some stuff. Tim, it's been wonderful chatting to you. I am so excited to see you in LA. And also I'm very excited for your writing. Now that you've said it out loud, you've got to do it. You do realize that, right?
I did that. That's kind of why I've said it. Why I say it publicly, even though it scares me to say things because I always hate talking about things before they happen.
Same.
Especially like auditions or work, like because it's the old thing. Like I've learned like I never ask my other buddies how that audition went.
Just
because like if you got the job, then it went well. If you didn't get the job, then let's not talk about it.
Exactly. That's the rule. I hate.
But for this, it's like I needed really just sort of that public kick in the ass to get this thing written.
No, you're right. I've started to do that I'm writing something with someone at the moment as well. And I haven't really talked about it. Maybe shall I say it here? This is maybe the first.
Say it here. Yes.
Okay, you?
I said mine, you say yours.
Okay, cool. Okay. So I'm writing a comic with my friend. He's a good buddy of mine, my friend Dan Fogler. He and I went to his little man shed last summer, and we were getting tired, shall I say. And
sure.
We were chatting away about a lot of different things, and I was on his podcast, and then all of a sudden this idea sprung. And he loves comics, and that he's already published quite a few, and we've started talking about it, and we've actually got notes and lots of voice recordings, and we've done so I'm gonna do it. If you've said you're doing it, Tim, I'm gonna do it. So
now you gotta do it.
So I'll go to your launch party stuff, and you can come to my launch party stuff. We can do it.
Deal.
Okay, great. Okay, in LA, I'm excited. Deal. Tim, it's been absolutely wonderful chatting to you. Thank you so much for taking the time as well. It's been lovely. I like these meandering chats. And for those who are watching, if you're watching along on YouTube, All of Tim's links are in the description below. If you're listening on Audible, yes, we're on Audible. We've talked enough about Audible today. Yes, we are.
But do you need credits for it?
Yeah. Do you need credits? If you're listening in Audible, love you Audibles. Please sponsor me. Please make sure you subscribe. Please make sure you subscribe on Spotify as well. This has been Hot Pod Time Machine. I'm Claire. This is Tim, and we'll see you again soon. Yay! Mwah. Bye everyone. Bye.
Cheers, love.